Daniel, and I am the president of Temple Waukesha. We are now live streaming this program. Our live streaming is being brought to us again from Jessie with JBP Solutions. She's providing our live stream today. So thank you, Jessie. Each quarter, Temple Waukesha selects a local nonprofit organization and contributes to that organization with a donation. This quarter's nonprofit is Community Smiles, which we are supporting with a $500 check. I'd like to invite Renee Ramirez, the executive director, to tell us a little more about her organization.
Thanks, Lorna. Good afternoon, everyone. As she said, I'm Renee Ramirez, and I'm the now CEO of Community Smiles Dental, formerly the Waukesha County Community Dental Clinic. And I know some of you know me from being a former member here, so it's really good to see you. In the last couple of years, we've been really busy. Not only did we continue to work in our Waukesha Clinic, which is a nonprofit program offering access to affordable dental care for children, specifically those who are on Medicaid. We opened a second clinic in Menominee Falls, which is why I took a hiatus from the organization here to get that opened up on Appleton Avenue, and we continue to grow. And we are now serving more than just Waukesha County. We are serving Washington, Ozaukee, and Milwaukee County, and our name did not represent us. So last year, through the 2020 craziness, we rebranded and we became Community Smiles Dental in January of 2021. So we're really excited to be here, and we are so thankful for your generosity. We will put this $500 to good use. As you can imagine, with the additional PPE, who knew we were going to know what PPE meant, right? But with the additional PPE and the expense that it's gone through the roof, this donation is going to help us quite a bit. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Renee. Just a few announcements I'd like to present to you. Our annual Celebrating Women Leaders event, Grit and Courage Under Pressure, is being held October 19th and will highlight the achievements of several outstanding female community and business leaders in Southeast Wisconsin. We will recognize women that have stood out and exemplified true grit. And we're very excited to announce our keynote speakers, Jennifer Bartolotta and Beth Winook, who will share with us their stories on grit and courage under pressure. Members, we appreciate your support for sponsoring this event. Watch for emails or visit our website for nomination forms. Next month, please join us for our annual membership event in June. Next month is June, isn't it? With our special guest, Denise Thomas, who's going to share with us how great communicators are great leaders. This is also our annual meeting where we will vote in board members. So we will be having the event at the Brookfield Conference Center. In addition to our lunches, we also get together for some fun events. Some of our upcoming events are, in June, we will be having a Sunday Fun Day at Pieper Porch. And we're going to enjoy some outdoor camaraderie with our cocktail connection. We've been having our cocktail connection virtual. We're going to have an in-person cocktail connection at the 5 o'clock club on June 17th. So, please keep that in mind. And then we're also excited to have, I believe this might be one of our first golf events that Temple will be having. We're going to be having it at the Fairways of Woodside in July. The cost will be $36 for 9 holes, and we will be having information on the website as well as sending an email out in June. Next month, we'll be sending that out. And then just one, our July event, we will be having a member networking event. We'll be back here at Westmore. So, I would like to now introduce Jen Moran, who is our VP of Marketing. She will be our moderator for our speakers, Katrina and LeAnn. Jen?
Good afternoon, everyone. So today we'll be hearing from 2 experts. They'll be talking to us about brand, style, and charisma. And please come up to the 2 experts, LeAnn Conway and Katrina Cravy. So LeAnn Conway, I'll introduce you first. So LeAnn is the founder of Conway Image Consulting, an image and wardrobe consulting business that helps busy professionals and entrepreneurs feel confident and put together from work to the weekend and beyond. Over the last 10 years, she has coached, empowered, and styled hundreds of ambitious women and men about the importance of investing in themselves and their image. She says, I pulled this from your site, how you present yourself at work can impact your career, but your presentation isn't limited to your clothing. I thought that was perfect for today. So welcome, LeAnn.
Thank you.
And it is also my pleasure to introduce you to Katrina Cravy. Katrina is the co-founder of CharismaQ, a sales coaching and communication platform to evaluate, coach, and create charismatic people. She knows your financial success is driven by your ability to engage and influence the people around you. Katrina has been obsessed with the art and science of charisma ever since her grandfather taught her how to shake hands the right way, and so did mine. So,
Did he?
yes.
Okay. Let's hear it for our grandfathers and grandmothers.
Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
So based on the title of today's program, Brand, Style, and Charisma, we're actually going to start with style because that leads into it, and then charisma, and then we'll finish off with brand. So LeAnn, your business, Conway Imaging, focuses more on appearance and first impressions. Can you give us some insight on how you approach and advise, and is there a formula?
So, well, just a couple things about image consulting. I'm going to start there. There's really 4 components to image consulting. There's appearance, so that's how you look. And then there's behavior, that's how you act. And then communication is how you talk. And digital footprint is how you're showing up online, which has been a big thing this past year, even more so as everything's been online, right? So all those things make up you, and also just how you're showing up. So it's not just about that first impression of, you all probably have a first impression of me, when you first saw me come up here, but it's also what are you wearing for yourself? So how are you showing up for yourself? And that matters first, and that all starts in your closet. So you're deciding, because none of us live in a nudist colony, correct? We all start our day.
I know a couple of these people.
We all start our day in opening those closet doors and deciding how we're going to show up. And first, we're deciding how we're going to show up for ourselves. And that is very impactful because it sets the tone for your whole day. So you can wear something and feel blah, and that's how the rest of your day is going to go. Or you can decide to show up and wear something that you feel absolutely amazing wearing. I use the word love a lot, but I firmly believe that you should love everything that's in your wardrobe. Why not?
And I want you guys all to know that when we did the pre-call and getting this event put together today, my last question to the whole group was, LeAnn, what are we wearing? Right? And she said that many of her clients right now, how many of you first time wearing your heels since COVID-19 today? Second time? Second time? I know. So I said to her, she goes, yeah, a lot of the clients haven't been wearing high heels. And I'm like, well, if you give me permission, I'm not going to either.
Or their bras.
Right.
Yeah, so if this is your first time or if you're getting out back into the office, wearing real clothes, as I call them, not the leggings or the sweatpants, there's a few things I'm going to share with you, and going off of these two. The first is bras are not optional. We need to put those back on, and that's the first thing that is hitting your skin. So you should feel good in what you're putting on there. That may be adjusting and maybe purchasing some new ones because you want to make sure that you feel good first. The second is what you're wearing. It might be confusing. Things might not fit the way that they used to. Give yourself some grace. Pick out 2 to 3 outfits that you feel amazing, your favorite go-tos, and start there, and then just build from there. And the third is shoes. We can't wear slippers. So maybe try those shoes on, and maybe it's not heels. I've heard from a lot of clients they're never going back to heels. So try on some flats, see how those work for you, or invest in a shoe shaper and shoe stretcher.
So the appearance, that leads us into charisma. So once you've got your package together, then you've got to do your internal package or have that come out. So, right. So Katrina, LeAnn's first impression and appearance is a bridge to your business, is how I was looking at it. And this past year has moved us into a more virtual world, and many are now moving to in-person or hybrid style of doing business. So you have to think of how you look virtually and in person, like which one am I today? So how does CharismaQ work with in-person and virtual spaces, and is there a different approach you take when advising clients in that space?
There's a Oh, so sorry, live stream audience. So sorry. I just think I'm loud enough that I thought the mic was on. So I had this great business partner, a great friend of mine, Terry Herman, and I was telling her that after I left Fox 6, I started coaching executives, fastest growing company in America. Brad Hollister was one of my clients. You can only imagine how many media interviews he had and speaking on international stages. One of the CEOs here in town that was interviewed on 60 Minutes. So we had to get him prepared, and he's a retainer client for me. But I was telling her that my bandwidth was getting low, right? Like I needed to figure out, how do I scale what I'm doing? And she's like, I got a great idea, because she had come from a video interviewing platform, and now we're building that so that we can take sales teams through an evaluation process. So when we say we're creating charismatic people, you go onto this platform, you answer 10 questions, you get to look at yourself like your clients see you, right? So we get to judge on first appearance, and so part of our CharismaQ components is first impression, message alignment, are you saying the message of your company really well, delivery, that's your voice, how many likes, you know, how many of you have teenagers? Are they ever gonna get jobs? Are we worried about that, right? But if you think about it, if you are a leader and you have a customer-facing team, how well are they showing up? And so we're on their pacing and everything on their delivery, we're rating that on this platform. And then the other components, the art of charisma, is authenticity. You can tell a phony far away, right? You guys all know when you see somebody that's really got it, you can see it. And it has to be true to who you are. So we don't want to make cookie cutters. And then it's got to be empathy. How much do you really care about the other person that you're supposed to be providing value to, right? Do you really know your buyer well, and have you, I say, become a reporter? Have you asked all the great questions to uncover it? And then confidence. How confident are you in the times that you need to be confident? So those are our CharismaQ components, and that's what got The whole business this year has been what Terry calls a bleeding neck problem. Sales teams went home. We were all sent home. And now we had these international companies that were like, my sales force does not show up well on virtual, right? They are laying on their couch, they're wearing t-shirts, and their kids and dogs are, screaming every time the Amazon truck pulls up, right? So that was what we were doing this year is your set, how to create a great set, how to make yourself look really good, and then what was your script? How were you on point when you were on those video calls? So that just gives you a little bit. And some tips for video, it takes a lot more energy. I don't know about all of you guys that when they say Zoom fatigue, that's a real thing. But part of it is when you're in person, you can come across and people can pick up some things about you. But when you're on camera, and 20 years of experience or more, on camera, you just have to really be a big personality to even come through because it squashes you down. If you've ever gone back and recorded yourself, you get to see it and you're like, I wasn't even smiling. I thought I was being energetic, but it really doesn't show up that way. So if I had to give you any tip on virtual, show up with more energy. And then go for a walk and do something else and recharge and then get on your next call.
Right. Leave time in between to do that, probably. So then we've talked about style, we've talked about charisma, and so then we're going to circle back to your brand. So it's all about your brand and how you present yourself. So in business, we know that businesses have a brand. That's who I work with every day. Businesses how they talk about themselves, how they present themselves, their logo, their marketing, who they associate with as a business. So how does that translate? So both of you probably deal with this every day. So how does this translate with someone's personal brand? Like how does someone's style and charisma affect their personal brand?
Well, if you think about it, whether you work for a company or you have your own company, you're a walking business card for that company or for yourself. So it doesn't matter if you're going to the grocery store. Katrina and I were talking about this, and I said, can you go anywhere and not be recognized? Like, I can't even imagine. And she was like, no, you're always on. So think about that wherever you're going, because you're representing not only yourself, but the company you work for or your own company.
I think the best story I can tell you, and it's a story that I don't use very often, but sometimes when people ask me about that, about how do you show up as your most authentic self all the time, and I don't know about you guys, but how many of your mothers are the chief chairman of your board of directors? Your mom, right? So I want you to go back to 1994 when I was working at Channel 4. I had just gotten the job at Channel 4. I was 24. So brand starts early, and when your mother comes to visit you, she's from California, she came to visit me. What do you do when your mom comes to visit you? You get sick, right? Because then you're like, I can be sick, there's somebody to take care of me. So my mom and I, why she wanted me to go to Blockbuster and pick out a video, I don't know. I had like 103 temperature, and she's like, okay, we'll go to Blockbuster. And anyway, so we go in there, and the cashier is a guy, and he recognizes me. It's the first time I was recognized in Milwaukee, right? I'm 24, I'm a brand new reporter. And he's like, oh, I really like your reports, you do a good job, and I have 103 temperature. And I say, yeah, great, okay, thanks, give me whatever Beverly Hills Cop we were getting or something like that, I don't know. And we got out to the car, and my mom just unloaded on me, right? Rightfully so. I mean, now that I'm a mom, I get it. And she said, I don't want to ever see you act like that with anyone else. I said, Mom, I'm sick. I don't feel good. And she said, he gets one time to see you. One time to see you. And he will go and tell probably 25, 50 other people that he got to see you today. And do you want him to say, she's not what she was on TV, right? And I know that sounds a little harsh, right? You guys don't all feel that way. You weren't in the job that I was in. But if you could show up every time with the people around you with your best self, just even for those moments. And if you're a leader in this room, Think about the people that come to talk to you in your office, and they remember that conversation with you for years after you've had that conversation. You don't remember it at all, right? But they remember it. And it was a really great lesson for me, as much as I hated her at that moment, right? Can you just let me be sick? It was a great lesson for me to show up on brand all the time with anyone else who was around me. And guess what? It turned out to be really freeing. I never had to worry that anyone I came across was like, oh, she was a jerk, right? I never worried because I was like, I tried to be my best every time. So I would just encourage you to think about every conversation that you have with other people, be your best.
So this brings me to, how do you know if you need to change your own brand? Like, how do you know? I mean, you have that good friend who might, give you a little nudge and say, hey, Jen, you're not doing your best today. But how do you know you need to change your brand, your personal brand, and then where do you go to start?
Go to LeAnn.
Great question. That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, first of all, what I do, I don't look at a room or go somewhere and say, you need to work with me. Although I hear this all the time from people saying, oh gosh, you're probably looking at this. Oh, this is old. Oh my God. Apologizing. First, don't apologize. Don't ever apologize. But it's something that you just recognize in yourself, whether that be you don't like how you're showing up, you don't like how you're feeling, because again, where do we all start? We don't live on a nudist colony, so we are starting our day in our closet, picking out something to wear, and we might not feel like what's in there represents us. So my big thing when I work with a client one-on-one is to make sure that they love what they are putting on their bodies, that they are showing up as the best version of themselves, and that everything in there fits them, flatters them, provides function for their lifestyle, makes them feel fabulous. And 5, I have a thing with the number 5. The last 5 is that you can wear it 5 different ways, because we were talking about granimals, things can mix and match.
I told her we all want granimals for adults. And for you that are too young to know about granimals, they were color-coded. You just walked into the store, you matched the tag. That lion shirt goes with those lion pants, and you were ready to go. Yeah. But to that question about brand and when it's time to change, I think there's something that we need to talk about too, because I know it's hard to believe, but you age, right? And the brand of your age, when we were thinking about that question, I was like, if I look back at those former years, right, what you wear, when you say, like, if you're comfortable in it now, the strapless, shirt that I would wear back when I was 20 is not what I'm going to put on now, right? And so when you just talk about your visual brand, that has to change, I think, with age. And also your internal brand, too, your experience. We all have our own stories. You've come from a different city, right? You've learned from different places. You've had different jobs. Like, all of those experiences should become part of your brand as you go along.
So, so many people, well, not so many, but there's a lot of people out there now who are looking for new jobs, or businesses on the flip side wanting to support their employees as they're going back to the office. But I think maybe if there's a way to touch on getting back out there or changing jobs. For instance, in the past year, some of us have decided, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore. I think I want to move into a different profession. And then I think you have to dig deep and find your charisma, your style, and your brand. So do you work with people who are getting back out there, who haven't been working, or who are in transition, and how do you approach that?
Yeah, that's a lot of my clients, or they're looking for a complete wardrobe refresh. So basically we start off with finding what are those words that represent you and your image, And are those in alignment with how you're showing up and what is in your closet? A lot of times there's 1 to 3 disconnects when I work with a client, because there's pre-work when we work together. We want to make sure that you're getting the most out of it, and it's a thought process that you're thinking through everything. So sometimes there's that disconnect between those words. Like you may say, I'm classic, I like this, I'm friendly, I'm approachable, but then when we step into your closet, there's nothing classic about it, because there's that, what does classic mean to you and what does classic mean to me? So then it's, where's that in between, and how do we make that be a reality for you?
And I don't work with clients in transition. However, I did make a big transition when I left Fox 6 and went out on my own, so I know how scary it is to think about branding yourself. You cannot even imagine. I don't think I didn't breathe right for 9 months. And it was 2 years in the making. I knew I wanted, it had just been like, God had just put it on my heart. Like I was done. I had done everything I possibly could do there, and there wasn't anything else I could do. And I met with a woman that said 18 years at your job is generally the time that you start thinking about, I'm either staying here for 30 or I'm moving, right? She goes, you hit it right on the time of what most people do. So at 18, I was like, okay, so for 2 years leading up to that, I had coffee with a lot of people. I wanted to understand what I thought the audience would be for me if I went out on my own. I met with a branding expert who put me through all the exercises of, okay, how do we make, what do you think your colors would be on the website? And it's much like yourself, right? Like if you were going to go for a new job. And then it was the confidence, getting the confidence to go, am I really going to do this? I mean, this is crazy. I like my job, right? Like my job's okay. I like it, but I needed to make that transition. So we call it the naysayer in your head, your Zeke or your Zelda. You have all these conversations about how all these things are going to go wrong, or I'm going to go for that job interview, and you start to, and you have to get on top of the interview instead of getting underneath it. Think they should be happy that they're getting me, right? And that's a different mindset switch that I hope all of you learn how to turn on. And it's a daily decision. I don't want you to think like I turned it on and was like, I'm going to make this happen. And every day I felt like that, because that's not the truth. That's just not the truth. So I just hope that if you're in that transition, that you do enough soul searching and talking to the audience to understand as much as you possibly can about where you're going to go and about that company. I said you can never stalk somebody as easily as you could stalk people now, right? So when LeAnn's talking about, okay, when your social digital imprint, what do you look like to the employer, but then what can you find out about them so that you can do a deep dive and have some really good questions ready when you go into that job interview. So I think you've got to do a lot of research on yourself and the person that you're really trying to attract.
So I was just thinking about businesses, and you need to represent the business that you're in. So businesses want to have their own people represent them and what they want to portray. So I was curious, do businesses come to you as well to advise their employees on how to style themselves, how to present themselves to clients, and then empower them to sell the business?
Yeah, so I have a lot of speaking services that I offer for corporations and small groups, and a lot of that is all about dress codes and defining what those dress codes are, and the lines are very all over the place right now. As I've talked to many of my clients where shorts are even allowed at some companies now, so it's a lot harder. There's other industries where it's very defined in their book of what you can and cannot wear. So you just have to be mindful of those things and how you're showing up for yourself.
For us, it's on that message alignment piece for CharismaQ. So we work with the marketing department to find out what are the key phrases that your team needs to be able to get out there with your clients, with your buyers. And that's been the biggest thing. We're helping with onboarding. So they get hired, and now you want them to show up and deliver. And if you don't have a very good, mature onboarding plan, CharismaQ is a great addition that in their 4th week of being on in your employment, they would go through our evaluation. They would get to see themselves as your clients are going to get to see them. And we make sure that they are on message. So they're looking good, they're sounding good, they are certified to sell for you at that point. So that's what we're doing now, is with the larger teams.
Well, that pretty much is the best you. The brand, style, charisma, that's the whole package. So if we'd like, we can take some questions from our members and guests.
Come up with some really hard ones.
So as we're live streaming, please let me come to you with the mic to make sure everyone can hear.
So back to your comment about some companies allow for shorts. As a business consultant, I was surprised about that some of my clients went from suit and ties to their C team had shorts on. And I know my first reaction to that was like, how do you get the respect when you're wearing shorts and a golf shirt? So what is your opinion on that?
Well, I don't think you should wear them, but I mean, I think it all has to be appropriate. So there's that appropriate level, and that's what I've been talking to a lot of C-level and owners about, where they've had these conversations and saying we're being, because we have a hybrid model or whatever, we want to just be kind of changing how we're looking at what our dress code is. So then I'm like, you have to be specific then, instead of Daisy Dukes, you know, they have to be appropriate length shorts. So I'm always, when I talk with a client, let's dress a little bit up from that, rather than focusing on, well, we can do this, maybe a Friday, okay. But if you're customer facing and client facing, I don't think you should be dressing that way. That's just my opinion.
Hi, so my question is kind of feels like a conflict in my brain, so I hope it comes out right. Number one, females, right? Okay, there we go. So going into a male-driven industry where, number one, you want to look good because you're female, but number two, listen, I think we all know it, we can be distracting if we're too overpowering in our presence, you know, but it's what feels good in our brand, or it aligns with the business that we're representing. How do you balance that so that you can make sure that those gentlemen are focusing on your words and your messaging versus checking you out per se? Do you know what I mean? How do you find that balance?
One, it's being true to you. So how do you like to dress? What is going to be part of your brand for your new company moving forward? The other part is there is the psychology of colors. So colors hold a lot of meaning, and people can be distracted by certain colors that you wear too. So if you want to come across more powerful, more strong, what do we tend to wear? Black. Red can also be a very powerful color too. And so it also can appear sexy. So it just depends on what you're actually wearing. And then to keep the focus up here, I talk about that with online or in person. You don't want to wear anything distracting. Still be you, but you don't want to be wearing a distracting pattern, lots of like big dangly earrings, because you want the message and you want them to hear what you're saying and not be distracted by this.
It's one of the things that a consultant for TV would come in and they would say that you get about 5 seconds, I think you said 7 seconds, for the audience to look at you and decide to change the remote, right? So that and I do this in the speaking engagements, but if I told you to look at your neighbor and size them up and down for 5 seconds, right? And that's generally where people are like, this isn't what I wanted to wear today, right? But yeah, you all look fabulous, right? You all look fabulous. But if you think about putting those clothes on and then really selling it, when you talk about the guys, it is one of those, the jewel tones are the best tones. For TV, yeah, so jewel tones pop, and Yeah, we talked about it, right? They pop on virtual as well, and that's really important. And when she talks about like distracting, no big earrings, think about when you watch somebody, and especially now on virtual, who better to teach you how to do virtual than someone that was on camera for so long, right? You get those big dangly earrings, that would distract from your message. So if you're doing a Zoom call, don't have any of those things on. I always say that the older I get, the more lights I buy. So buy more lighting for your calls. Make sure that you're not backlit by a window or anything like that. And then for the guys, I mean, that's just one of those things that you have to find your happy balance, right? And sometimes you can't help it. Right? Yeah.
So Katrina, I'm curious, when people go through kind of their Q assessment, is there common mistakes, you know, that you see and you're watching them speak on tape and you go, oh my gosh, here's another one that, like, what are those?
That is a great question, Kelly. I have to tell myself because I see it so often. I have a coaching client this afternoon that I just watched his video last night. They start every answer with so, and then get going. Just get going. Go right out of, can you tell? Can you tell? I'm like, come on. Just get going and go strong. And I think the other thing that I see is in the first minute, which will always be for anybody. I mean, we're creating a world of confident communicators, but that first minute of any time that you ever have to do public speaking, you're going to have, your voice is going to be a little off, those nerves are going to get going, and you have to be comfortable with that, and you have to trust yourself that after that minute, you will get better. And that's really what I see is those first minutes always the hardest, and don't start off with some, oh, or say kinda, which is a word that I ended up using quite a bit to make it seem conversational. I was interviewing someone on the set about an interactive website. And I said, so this is kind of an interactive website, right? And my boss called me into the office and said, why did you say kinda? It is an interactive website. You don't look confident out there. And I said, I was trying to make them feel comfortable. But remember those words. Watch out for those words. We're trying to make other people feel comfortable, but as women, we're not being confident.
LeAnn, I have a question, then I'll pass it on. I have a closet that needs some desperate purging. How best to really figure out what was the word you used, makes you feel wonderful? Makes you fabulous. Make you feel fabulous. What's the best way to try and do that?
Well, first, kudos to you that you want to start this. That's amazing. The first thing is that you need to set time on your calendar to do this because it's going to take time. You can do it in parts. I recommend just ripping the Band-Aid off and pulling it all out, and you need to try it on. What do you like to wear, first of all, and how are you dressing for your lifestyle? So first sit down and look at that. And then you can go in there and start trying things on to see how you like things on your body and how they should be fitting you. Do things fit right? Have things shifted? Do you not like this style anymore? Those kind of things first.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I actually had two questions, but you just covered one, Lorna. So the other question is, have you ever had a male client who you've had to work with?
Yes, I work with men and women.
Okay.
So about 40% of my clients are men.
Okay, the reason I'm asking, I went with a group of educational people who were taking students to things, and I was just shocked at the way that the men were dressed because it looked like something they'd, do the backyard work on a weekend rather than on some professional clothing. And I don't know if there's a great demand for that or if you've seen, that there's an improvement on some of the things that the men wear who are not necessarily, they would typically be a suit, but it's just, like business casual or business, type of stuff. And I don't know that they have good guidance on that.
Yeah, a lot of times when I work with a male client, it's because of their spouse, or because I started working with them, and then they were like, well, LeAnn could help you, and so usually stems from that. But then the other is it might be the company that they're working for, and it was a soft nudge to up their game a little bit.
One thing we don't think about too is haircuts. So the men that I've worked with, like one of them had a very buzz cut. And I thought, okay, I in the media would immediately ask if you had military service. So have someone else look at you and try to come up with the story of you just in your first appearance. And that was a big, as soon as I said that, I said, you would take one question away from their guessing machine, right? We all have these guessing machines. So have somebody else take a look at you and say, okay, what can we size up about you? And the other thing too, not only for yourself, but you can read into a lot of other people just by looking at them. I mean, you make conversation. Think about how often we make conversation where we go, oh, I love that. Where did you get it? Right? And we have to get that story going with them as well. But yeah, guys and haircuts are a big thing.
Question on, we've talked a lot today maybe about things that we don't want to see stay after the last 15 months, Zoom fatigue, things of that nature. But what have you maybe seen emerge as a result of the virtual environment and working from home that you think should have staying power, whether it's image, brand, charisma, what should stay?
If you don't mind, I'll take it. So McKinsey & Company and the studies that they have done, the buyers prefer video meetings. It's faster, it's more productive. The clients that we're working with are saying, you know, it used to take us 3 days to fly in, do this meeting, do this presentation. The subject matter experts, we'd have to fly them in too. It was so expensive. Now we can take a subject matter expert from another state, bring them in onto a video call. It's going to be a hybrid. They don't see it changing. Right? This will not completely go away. If you want to be really focused in your business, you should adopt a hybrid in-person and video meeting when you can, and think of it strategically on where your client's going to be. Yeah.
We've got a question that came in from Anne from the live stream, and she asked, when representing your brand, how do you balance your personal life with family when you're in public versus work when you're in the community? And for an example, a surprise meetup at the park versus planned meetings at the office or a networking event.
Well, I can tell you that as much as I say you have to be your best self everywhere, I don't go to the park looking all that great, right? I don't. I mean, I think that but I also think that that's authentic. I mean, if you guys saw me at the grocery store and I was made up like this on a Saturday morning, you'd be like, wow, she's a freak, right? Like that, I mean, it would be. Right, where are you going at? And you would ask, where are you going next? So I think that you shouldn't be wearing anything too ratty, but I think we also should give each other a little bit of a break on, yes.
Yeah, and I got asked this at a Temple Milwaukee event. A few ladies said, do you always have a full face of makeup? Are you always all like dressed up? I'm like, no, you should see me at a soccer game at 7 o'clock in the morning. I am not. I have no makeup on. My hair is usually on the top of my head, or I have a baseball hat on. But I feel it's also, you're approachable too. So it's all about being approachable, whether you have a full face of makeup on and a dress on, or you have a baseball hat on and tennies.
And one thing I was thinking of in this past year, talking about being authentic, we've all seen each other at our most authentic selves on Zoom, with the cat going in front with his tail, or the dogs barking, or just something going wrong because we might look like a bunny because we forgot to turn off the filter, or the cat. I'm not a cat. But so almost like being our authentic selves, like it's almost like, I feel like it's almost given us permission to be, that's our brand too, where we're allowed to have an off day, and we all get that about each other now. I almost feel like this past year has given us permission for that.
And you should, if a kid or cat or anybody goes into the shot, everybody needs to be more personable instead of professional. You need to introduce them. You don't shove your child, ugh, I'm on an important call, right?
Which I did on our call.
No, I know, you did.
And then I was like, come on, just hear
No, because I was like, LeAnn, you have to introduce her. I got to know, right? Because, and McKinsey has even said, we have more human connection on video now because we've been invited into their homes. So don't be afraid to show your authentic self at home, do the introduction, kiss your daughter and say, okay, now you can go away. We're in a meeting, right?
Yes. Well, thank you both for coming. We're wrapping up. Or do you have one other? Oh, you have another question?
What? I just had a personal follow-up question to that, kind of with the first 7 seconds, and what happens if you make a bad impression? What can you do both, in the moment to recover from that? So I got called into a Zoom meeting yesterday at 5 o'clock. I hadn't been on all day, and I'm in my pajamas still, honestly. And all of a sudden, on a moment, I had to go onto a Zoom call. So what can I do in the moment to kind of recover? And then also, what happens if you sometime have a bad first impression? What can you do to recover from that in the future with that same person?
My first piece of advice is you should always have a black jacket with you at all times. I tell all the executives, always have some business coat hanging off the back of your office door. And then, I don't know what color your PJs were, but I'm sure that black jacket would have made it look just fine. Would have been just fine, right? So throw on that black jacket. And then the other question I would have is, how do you know that you made a poor first impression, right? Did the other person say something? Because we can also interpret people's expressions completely wrong. So that naysayer comes out in our head, and then we're thinking, oh, I didn't do so well. And you just build on that. And that negative talk in your head just goes worse and worse. So I would want to know, did they say, you didn't make such a great first impression? Then I can say, all right, I guess I didn't, and now I'm going to recover.
Well, thank you both for coming. This was really delightful. Brand, the best you, brand style, charisma. I think we got a lot out of that today. So everybody go out and look at your closets.
Thank you so much, Jen, for moderating for Katrina and LeAnn. Appreciate everybody making it here today. Little reminder, Renee has brought us some little, I believe, mints for us to take with us, so please feel free to take that as well. Just want to make sure that you, please, follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. Look forward to seeing you next month, and have a great afternoon.